Welcome to all the students. In this presentation that is based on the topic productivity and its measurement for the subject industrial management, the subject code of which is RAS 601, and the subject is meant for BTech 6th semester students from all the branches. In this presentation we will see about the concept and meaning of productivity first. We'll see the need why productivity as an analysis as a measurement technique is required in organizations. Then we will see the difference between the production as well as the productivity, the factors which are affecting the productivity, followed by the types of productivity, the possible way to improve the productivity, tools used to improve the productivity, and last but not least, we'll see the benefits as well as constraint in measuring the productivity. So to start with the concept of productivity, productivity refers to the physical relationship between the quantity produced and the quantity of resources that are used to produce the goods. Like, for an example, we can say that if we want to find out the productivity, then we have to take the summation of all the outputs or the outputs produced in terms of either in terms of volume, in terms of quantity, in terms of number of unit produced, in terms of the net output if we want to calculate total factor productivity, or gross output if we want to find out the total productivity. And also we have to take care into consideration the resources which are used to produce the product. And by taking the ratio of both, we can find out the productivity easily. It's a ratio between output of goods and services and to the input of the resource in terms of the resources that are consumed during the process of production. Here in this diagram, you can see that productivity and production as separate process, separate parts or separate terms are shown clearly in this diagram. When we talk about productivity, many of people say it as the output as the productivity is like, but it is different from productivity. Production is different from productivity. When we talk about production, you can see in this figure, production is simply the transformation process, or it's a value added process which is used to add the value at each and every transformation phase. When we input, take some input as in the form of land, workforce, material, facilities, capital, technology, equipments, and transform it into a useful form of goods as well as services for the end user. Then the process is said to be a production system. Whereas if we wait by using the productivity analysis. Next, we'll see about the productivity. Higher productivity, when we find out the ratio in terms of output as well as input, then we'll find out a number. What this number denotes actually. Higher the productivity means producing more from a given amount of input and producing a given amount with a lesser input. Like if the outcome of productivity comes more than 1, then what it depicts? It depicts by using less resources, we are producing more. And if it is vice versa, like if the ratio of output to input is less than 1, then it will be interpreted like the resources are not utilized properly, and so output, the intended output is low, as below 1. And if it is perfectly 1, then we can say that the resources at their capacity are used, at their full capacity are used, as and the output is produced accordingly. Here, the next question comes around that what is the need of productivity? Why productivity is required? Why one should measure the productivity, and why one should go to find out the productivity uh, for the analysis purpose. Like, we have gone through the formula. Through this, we can find out a measure, mathematical measure, that how well the resources are being utilized in a firm. Further, it provides the assessment of the cost, like where the cost is extra or additional cost is incurred in the production process. Then one can assess the cost in terms of input, like cost incurred in resources like manpower, machine, material. If the cost of producing the new part is more than taking or purchasing it from the other vendor, then it will be better to purchase it from the vendor also and not to produce it, just because of the fact that if the cost of production is more than the output in terms of profit or gain by selling of the product, then there is no means to produce, there is no means to incur the resources in the production process, because it will provide the loss only and not the profit. So there is a need of productivity as an analysis to reduce the cost of production per unit through the economic or efficient use of resources. Another need, another importance of productivity is to improve the profit of the business. Once the entrepreneur know about their productivity, and then he can assess that profit will obviously increase as the sale will increase, as the cost of input, cost of resources will reduce, and profit accordingly increases. So the enterprise can more successfully compete in the market. Another need, another importance of productivity is in order to provide a kind of benefit to the consumer in the form of lower prices or better quality of product, both at the same time, by ensuring that, this can be ensured by the manufacturer, by the service provider, only and only when he uh, he tries, or he will success to keep their prices of commodity as low as possible. And from the viewpoint of manufacturer, the prices of commodity will only be low if he produce the commodity in either in large volume, as well as if the prices of the resources are low as possible as. Next comes the gain of the high productivity can be shared with workers also, like in terms of provision of high salary, bonus, the better working conditions, uh, perks, as well as the increment. Next is the need of productivity can be assessed by the point like availability of qualitative goods at reasonably low prices helps to improve the standards of living in a particular society, in a family, as well as in a country as a whole. Next importance of productivity is to generate the employment opportunities. Yes, of course, if the company will be in profit, if the product, more product will be sell out in the market, then more and more the company will produce. And then if the more and more company will produce, then the extension, the possibilities of extension of plants will improve, and so there will be a possibility to generate more and more employment opportunities in the market. Next importance can be assessed by getting the point, like a more productive enterprise can better export goods and earn valuable foreign exchange for the country. And not only they can the company can get more foreign exchange, but by doing so the inflation rate, by doing so the inflation within the country will also be controlled, will also be limited to a certain value. Next, as I told you earlier, that production and productivity is entirely two different things. Production is the transformation process of goods into finished goods, whereas productivity is a measure that how well the output is produced by input, by incurring the input into the process. And next, we'll see the various factors which are affecting the productivity in the market, in the environment, in the dynamic environment. Like, there are various controllable as well as uncontrollable factors which affect the productivity of the product of the service. Like these factors, some of the factors are controllable. These controllable factors are basically internal factors within the organization to which a service provider or a manufacturer can control easily, like the manpower, machine, material, quality of material, the the technology which is being used to process the goods. These are these all are comes under the controllable factors, whereas uncontrollable factors are those which are not in the hand of manufacturer or service provider. And so for these factors are beyond the control of an individual organization, like government and its policies, law, as well as legal framework of the country, and also the socio-economic condition of the country, the political interference of the political parties present within the country. These are the uncontrollable factors for the service provider within the country. And if such factors are um, if such factors are more more and more influensive, then productivity will also be affected. Here, all these controllable as well as uncontrollable factors are mentioned in, uh, in the form of points. Like you can see, the controllable factors are material as well as power. The availability of power is the factor to which the manufacturer or service provider can control. Machinery as well as plant layout is another factor. If the plant layout will be proper, then only the manufacturer can ensure that the productivity of the goods the product will be increased or higher. Next is the human factor. Human factor, when we talk about human factor, there are two sub factors associated with human as a factor or labor as a factor working in an organization. One is the ability to work, where it comes through the knowledge as well as training. And when we talk about another that is more important than the ability of work, that is motivation. If the worker is having the willingness to produce good product, qualitative product, then only the productivity of the plant will be increased. Next is technological factors like use of the new technology, use of the automated tools, systems, as well as techniques will increase the productivity because it increases the processing rate, as well as uh, it also helps to reduce the wastage. And last but not least, the controllable factor is organization as well as managerial factor. If in the organization the structure is like participative rather than autocratic, then also the productivity will improve. At the same time, if the management support uh, is provided to different level of hierarchy within the organization, then also it will helpful to increase the productivity, overall productivity. Whereas when we talk about uncontrollable factors like economy, if the economy of the country is is like communist economy rather than we can say capitalist, then it will decrease the morale of industrialists over there, as well as if the political parties are influentive in a particular area, then they may uh, influence the production, the labor, the resources which are uh, available in a particular zone or region. Next is social changes. Yes, of course, the preferences of people in a particular area also affect the productivity of the product. If the uh, preferences are changed very fast and industrialist is unable to know about the preference of people, then he'll produce the wrong product, and by doing so people will not opt the product. Next is the natural resources. If the natural resources are not available in a particular zone or area, then also the producer will face the problems uh, related to availability of related to ensure the availability of the resources over there. Like the transportation cost will increase in order to arrange the material, the resources over there. Next is government policies and legal frameworks. If the legal or law related problems will be associated with the business, then the business, it will be difficult to run the business, to run the industry in a particular area. And so this is another important factor that is taken to consideration while measuring the productivity. Next, we'll see about the different types of productivity, different measures through which we can measure the productivity, judge the productivity of the product as well as services rendered to the consumer. Like we can find out, we can categorize the productivity as a measure of efficiency come effectiveness by calculating partial productivity factor, total factor productivity, and total productivity. While talking about partial productivity factor, a single factor may be taken into consideration, or a multiple number of factors can be taken into consideration while calculating the productivity. When we talk about single factor productivity measurement, as the name suggests itself, only single factor as the resource is affecting the output, then we can find out the single factor productivity measurement. Like you can see the formula over here in the slide, it's output to the single factor as labor. It may be material or it may be taken capital into consideration for calculating the single factor productivity measurement. The advantage of single factor productivity is it's easy to obtain relevant data and easy to comprehend. Whereas another advantage of single factor productivity is it acts as a good diagnostic measurement tool to identify area of improvement. If we talk about disadvantage of this single factor productivity analysis, then it doesn't reflect the overall performance of the business, and it can misinterpret. If we consider the effect of only a single factor on the output, then obviously it will mislead to the management that over a single factor, due to single factor, the productivity influence. However, all the resources combinedly affect the productivity, the effective efficiency as well as effectiveness of the output. When we talk about single factor productivity measurement, then there are various formulas that should be taken into consideration in order to calculate the single factor productivity. Like single factor productivity can be judged in terms of labor productivity, management productivity, machine productivity, land productivity, material productivity, as well as energy productivity, by taking into consideration the output in terms of the goods produced by the labor, and for the current year to the base year. The comparison year can be taken into consideration. Next is multiple factor productivity measurement. As the name suggests itself, multi-factor productivity. Here, instead of taking single factor into consideration, we'll take two or more than two factors into consideration while calculating the productivity. Here you can see in the formula, like the multi-factor productivity for labor, machine as well as energy can be calculated in terms of output to the ratio of output to the resources in terms of labor, machine and energy taken into consideration, as well as labor, energy, material can also be taken a consideration. The advantage of multi-factor productivity is it consider immediate intermediate inputs of a business and measure a technical change in an industry by while taking into consideration of two in or more than two factors. Whereas disadvantages associated with a multi-factor productivity analysis is it's difficult to obtain all the inputs. Yes, all the inputs we are not considering here. We are considering only a few, more than one, but a few of factors that are influencing the productivity. And also it is difficult to say that it's equivalent to the total productivity. No, if the resources which are taken into consideration other than labor, machine as well as energy, then they also influence the productivity up to a large extent. Next is total factor productivity measures. This particular technique was developed by John W. Kendricks in 1951, and in this particular analysis we'll take only labor as well as capital as input factor. Earlier I told you in multi-factor productivity analysis that there are also two or more than two factors as the resource in the form of resources can be taken into consideration for calculating the productivity. But here this particular analysis or measure is different in terms of the output also. Here we'll consider net output instead of total output. There is a difference between net output and total output. Net output is the output that is the difference between output with the any kind of services which are taken into consideration. That is not the part of that is not considered as a part of output. However, while calculating the total productivity, then it will also be taken into consideration. And so this is the big disadvantage associated with total factor productivity, that net output doesn't reflect the efficiency of the production system in a proper way, since it is not equivalent to the total output. But however, from the viewpoint of measuring the analysis, like how much labor as well as capital affect the productivity, affect the performance of in terms of output produced, it can be calculated by using total factor productivity measures. Next comes total productivity. As the name suggests itself, it's the ratio of total output to the total input. Here, output as well as input are considered only in the form of tangible goods only. Like, we'll not consider the services which are mostly intangible. Here, this is the biggest drawback of this particular analysis, that it doesn't consider any intangible factor of input as well as output. Rest all are the advantages associated, like all the quantifiable inputs are considered in order to calculate the productivity, and so the sensitivity analysis can be done easily, and it provides both firm level as well as operational unit level opportunity productivity. Then here the next question arises, that while calculating tangible output as well as tangible input, then what is tangible output and what is tangible input? When we talk about tangible output, tangible is to which we can touch easily. Then it comes like where the value of finished unit produced and partial unit produced, like in under processing units, and it is considered also the dividends from the securities, interest from the bonds and other income. All these things comes under the category of tangible input. If we sum up all these values, then we'll find out total tangible output in terms of money. Whereas we can calculate the total tangible input in terms of the value of resources having, like in human inputs, the labor which are taking the money after working 8 hours or the calculated hours. And similarly, the capital as an input, material purchase, the rupees for which the material is purchased, the energy inputs in terms of money, and other expenses like taxes, transports, and office expenses in terms of rupees. So we can find out the total productivity, total tangible productivity, we can say. Next comes, there are various methods to improve the productivity. So far we know the importance of the productivity and how we can find out the productivity in the organization. Then the next task is obviously to search the means through which we can improve the productivity in the organization. In order to improve the productivity, there are various measures the management should take into consideration, like they can adopt up-to-date technology, they should implement a proper system of managerial planning and control, they should effectively manage the time within the plant and maintain all the work-related facilities in the factory. They should standardize their process, their automation, as well as if there is a possibility of to automate the plant, then they should do so that they can reduce the defects, they can increase the accuracy as well as precision in the goods produced. They should empower the employees by providing proper training and environment, like in which the worker should motivate to work, and the the worker should be participative. Workers should work in a participative environment, then only they will be motivated enough. And so on, the communication is an important aspect, important factor that should be taken into consideration in between the management as well as workers. If the proper communication will be there in the plant, then only the productivity will increase. However, one of the important way to which can be helpful to improve the productivity is to provide a kind of flexibility in order to uh, work for the employee at their workplace. This also will provide a kind of relaxation to the employee uh, and improve their productivity. There are various tools also with the help of which the productivity can be improved. Apart from these steps which I told you earlier in the previous slide, the way possible manners through which one can improve the productivity, uh, the focus must be on to implement such tools that are based on either material based or process based, technology based, management based. With the help of these tools, one can ensure that productivity increases. Like the MPC, material planning and control tool, can be used within the plant. Another task-based measure like work measurement, method study, time study can be taken into consideration in order to improve the productivity. Some technology-based measures can also be taken, like use of technology by while designing the product, while manufacturing the product, while integrated designing as well as manufacturing the product is taken into consideration in order to manage the uh, manage the culture of the organization and to motivate the employee. The productivity can be improved. Further, we can see that some product-based as well as employee-based measures also be taken in order to improve the productivity. There may be use of value analysis and value engineering, product diversification, standardization and simplification, reliability engineering, product mix and promotion, and the use of quality circle and small group activities are helpful in order to increase the productivity. Next is the illustration. Here I'm taking an illustration that is of a comparative nature. Like if we have the productivity of base year as well as the current year, then we can find out the estimation, overall estimation, that how much change the productivity takes place in a particular year by taking into form of the example. Like if we have the productivity of the base year is if it is like 1.75, and for the current year if it is 1.93, then one can easily estimate by taking the ratio of productivity for the current period to the base period, and it can be easily assessed that the change in the productivity for the current year. Last but not least, we'll see about the benefits as well as constraint that can be arise while implementing the change in the organization. Like there are various benefits to the management to improve the productivity, like they can increase their profitability, reduce the cost incurred in the resources, and they can gain the market shares for their product and services offered to the consumer. The as the uh, as the supply will be more, then more cash flow will arise, and obviously the loan as well as debt that can be acquired, that may be acquired earlier, will be clear. And this will also enhance the image of the organization in the market. It will increase the goodwill of the organization in the market, and the firm will be a competitive one, a world class firm. From the viewpoint of consumers, the benefit of the productivity are as the consumers can get the good quality of product at low cost, and they will get the new features and the satisfaction, a kind of satisfaction to use the product. Next, we can see the benefit of improved productivity from the viewpoint of employees or workers in working in our industry. The company can pay higher salary as they will they have more amount in their banks, and they can improve the working condition in the plant itself, and by doing so the company can ensure that their workers will uh, get a good standard of living, and as well as job satisfaction at the workplace. Some other advantages from the viewpoint of government and other stakeholders, like the overall wealth maximization will be there by improving the productivity, and the inflation rate will be decreased by increasing the productivity. The growth as well as the economy of the country, nation, family, society will overall increase. When we talk about different benefits, it is also important, equally important, to discuss the different constraints that may arise while measuring the productivity. Like the productivity analysis cannot provide the measurement in terms of intangible output that is provided by the service sector. There is a difficulty to measure the outputs as well as input, and in order to analyze or measure the productivity, overall productivity, to the correct extent. Like there's always a doubt that the valuation of productivity, like the output and as well as input, should be assessed clearly, properly, and accurately. The next and important thing is, if the productivity comes in the fraction, then also to interpret the data related to factorial productivity is difficult, and there is a difficulty to ensure to fix the man hours. Like in each and every industry, the man hour are not certain. It varies as per requirement, as per shift, as per the targets. And so it's a big constraint to measure the exact manners in a or in an industry. As well as there is a big constraint or challenge in front of the uh, the person who is measuring the productivity is to deal with the changing environment, the external environment in which the work as well as the industries are working. It's very challenging to measure the prices of the commodities in terms of for the input and output produced, then because of the external environment. So these are the different constraints while measuring the productivity. For this presentation, I have taken Dr. Ravi Shankar as well as T.R. Banga's book for the reference purpose, and you can get the matter from there too also. That's all from this presentation. Thank you. Thanks for your kind attention, students.